So some brand new Nintendo Switch 2 leak updates just recently hit the internet that we need to talk about, because if you were somebody who was in the mindset of maybe those images we were talking about last week with the motherboard and a supposed prototype unit and a up close look at the Joy-Con casings, everything that we discussed in prior videos that you can find on my channel, if you were in the mindset that maybe that was some kind of elaborate fake or hoax, we now have some industry experts, literally the people that everybody goes to for tech analysis, Digital Foundry, weighing in with their own opinion on just how legit this leak actually is. And spoiler alert, it does appear to be a legit leak, which also further backs up all of that additional information we covered, such as the size of the unit, the CAD file that was based off of the dimensions that were drawn up from this prototype that was an actual leaked image. And that seems to also support the idea that the specs that we saw leaked at that same time are indeed accurate. And in addition to that, we also have another brand new story to talk about that's making the rounds online, suggesting that the battery life on Nintendo Switch 2 might be significantly better than what many are expecting, actually outperforming the entire Switch family of consoles that we have today. So we're gonna get on the same page with everything. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And we have to first kick it off by discussing this leaked image of a prototype unit that is supposedly from late 2023. This is not something, and just to clear up any kind of misconceptions out there, that came off of the factory line. This is not that type of leak, but rather this is a prototype unit that somebody snapped a picture of, and the claim is that they traded the image at a great cost to somebody who wanted it. Who knows what that is, but nonetheless the info does seem to be legitimate. That also means we're going to be able to expect things like a USB-C port on the top of the console in addition to the bottom of the console. And then you cross-reference that with the story we just talked about yesterday, where Nintendo's registering a brand new device with the FCC that has like a 24 gigahertz millimeter wave sensor in it and a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi receiver in it. There's a lot of speculation going around online about what kind of peripherals Nintendo might be creating for their next gen console, and maybe the gimmick's going to be something that is an optional add-on if there even is an advertised gimmick around the launch of this console. But I want to first hop over to Go Nintendo, where they do have a detailed typed up article summarizing Digital Foundry getting involved in this conversation and why they believe that the images that we saw and all of the reports around the specs were actually entirely factual information. As you can see this following write-up, which reads, Digital Foundry claims Switch successor image leaks are most likely legit. Experts' insight. Last week, the image above popped up online and supposedly shows off what the Switch successor will look like. As many expected, it appears to be extremely similar to the current Switch. Of course, real changes are to be found inside the system itself, as the hardware power will differ greatly from what the first iteration of Switch included. Of course, with any leak, there was discussion as to whether or not the image is legit. Nintendo obviously isn't saying anything, which leaves us to armchair analysts for commentary. Digital Foundry, some of the best tech-minded people in the gaming press, have examined the image and they believe it to be true. In an interview with IGN, they explain why the leaked images gets their stamp of approval. The exact quote from Digital Foundry reads as follows: "It's right to have a degree of skepticism about this leak because there's nothing to stop someone 3D printing up a fake casing," he said. "However, faking a convincing motherboard would require a degree of technical knowledge that I'd put even beyond the most elaborate hoax. It would be easier simply not to fake a board at all and to make the printed components look a lot more genuine. Then there's the fact that everything shown on the board is a match for the latest and most accurate leaks based on Taiwan shipping manifests accumulated by the ardent sleuths on the Famiboards forum." So you look at just how hard it would be to fake a legit looking motherboard like that with all of the correct placement of everything that Nintendo needs component wise. Then you cross-reference that with the fact that everything lines up information wise with the shipping manifests that are legit info that you can actually go see, that people have done the research on. Like, everything lines up and everything passes all of the usual red flags with potential fraud leaks, and I am in the mindset that this is very much legit information, and the size and dimensions of this thing is what's most going to blow me away when I finally hold this console. Because if you saw the video where I was talking about what that Chinese YouTuber mentioned when they 3D printed a mock-up of this console based off the dimensions that were available, it's going to be a big boy Switch compared to what we have now. That is most certainly going to be apparent when you hold it. It is not quite the size of the Steam Deck, but it's getting into that territory, and it will really be nice to have an 8-inch display A reminder in case you forgot, there's claimed to be an onboard microphone with this thing, 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM, 256 gigabytes of internal storage, and it will still have a physical game cartridge slot, something that you actually have to be grateful for in modern gaming, as well as an SD slot. So this seems to be one of those situations where we have actually gotten a peek at the console before Nintendo officially announced it and before it even made it all the way to manufacturing potentially, because while it might be in manufacturing right now, mass manufacturing that is, it also might not be, because we're not seeing a bunch more leaked photos from the supply chain like you might expect to see around this time, but rather some late 2023 prototypes of the Switch 2 that just so happen to make it online. So I found that update interesting to provide some more context to the legitimacy of that previous leak we've been talking about on this channel. And then the part 2 that we're going to kind of be discussing today does have to do with the Switch battery life. Also some backstory about AMD really apparently fighting very hard to secure the Nintendo Switch 2 contract for the processor chip. It sounds like Nintendo obviously went with Nvidia, and that's what we're going to expect in this next gen hardware. But the good news about why they did that is because they're going to be able to essentially get the same kind of performance that AMD was offering them at a much lower amount of wattage that would be used from the battery, specifically in handheld mode, because Nintendo is very concerned with things like battery life and the overall mass market appeal of their product. And if something has like an hour and a half battery life, that's obviously going to be a problem. We even saw Nintendo update the original base model Switches with a V2 that came out later on that had significantly better battery life. That is an important metric to them, and it sounds like we should be able to expect even far superior battery life out of the gate on Switch 2. As you can see, this, which is in the rumor category as it comes from Moore's Law is dead, but they have had good info on a lot of things in the past related to Nvidia specifically. And WCCF Tech has the following write-up, which reads, Nintendo Switch 2 AMD bid didn't go through due to handheld mode performance and efficiency. Leaks suggest excellent battery life. The Nintendo Switch 2 had the chance to be powered by AMD, but the company lost the bid to produce the next Nintendo system due to handheld mode performance and power efficiency, according to rumors circulating online. As reported by a new video shared by Moore's Law is Dead, AMD lost the bid due to its chip's performance and efficiency at 5 watts. The company reportedly wanted Nintendo to push the system in handheld mode at up to 15 watts to get truly next generation performance, but the Japanese company didn't want to push its console that far, as they didn't want to have a heavier battery. Ultimately, Nvidia's chip provided the same power as the AMD chip with much better efficiency and a far cheaper node, which was very important for Nintendo to keep costs low. Battery life is likely to be one of the highlights of the Nintendo Switch 2. Judging from last week's leaks, the battery should provide around 20 watt hours, a significantly higher capacity than the original Switch battery. However, the system will consume way less power in handheld mode than its predecessor, granting much better battery life than the current generation console. So it's interesting to think that we may have seen a world where Nintendo went to market with the successor console for the Switch 2 with an AMD chipset, but efficiency became the big issue, definitely price point weighing into that factor as well. And it's ultimately good news that the Nvidia chip that's being custom designed for this thing is efficient enough to run games in handheld mode with such low wattage that we're going to be able to experience things like better battery life. As long as the visuals are intact, the frame rate's solid and things like that, and it's not a massive downgrade from what you get in docked gameplay, I'm all for having better battery life and a better overall experience when you're traveling with the system and taking it on the go, which is one of its main selling points as a hybrid console. So obviously we'll have to wait and see just how much better the battery life actually is in real world performance when the Switch 2 launches and it's in the hands of consumers, because that's the only way you're going to get a super accurate read. I don't even see Nintendo necessarily communicating ahead of time just how much expected battery life there is to be, but rather once you get some hands-on units and things shipped out there, we'll get some real world tests to be able to kind of tell if it's in like the 3.5 to 4, maybe even upwards of 5.5 hours range. Something like that would be incredible. Obviously it's going to change game to game and depending on just how intensive the game is that you're playing in handheld mode, but better battery life's always a good thing. Nvidia seems like the right choice for Nintendo, as they've just had a great partnership through the entire Switch's generation, and they're definitely going to be looking to make a lot of money together once again in the Switch 2's generation. So let me know in the comments down below what you make of both the different stories. Are you on team legit for this prototype leak now that you've seen even the experts like Digital Foundry weigh in and essentially say this was too hard to fake and would be beyond the most elaborate hoax they've seen ever in the past, and that the motherboard's too convincing and lines up with all the shipping manifests and it's a real thing. And if that is indeed the case, are you happy with what we've seen so far in this console in regards to the leaks, or were you wanting something different or more from Nintendo this time around? And what do you make of the claims that the battery life on the next gen console will be significantly better than that of the current family of Switch systems? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.